Hi again everybody, welcome back and thanks for joining me for a new Allan Holdsworth lesson. Today I decided to do The Things You See, which is a pretty challenging track. It's another good example of an early Allan tune where the chords themselves are sort of easier to understand, but the physical part of playing them can be really challenging. So this isn't like a super difficult one, but it's not really that easy, so proceed with caution. Also, I decided that because I'm sort of at the end of some of these lesson videos of the songs that I can do, some of them are going to be pretty challenging, so I decided instead of just throwing in difficult song after difficult song, I'm going to see if I can break them up with easier tunes, maybe tunes that I didn't think I really wanted to do a lesson on, but because I don't want it just to be, these are all songs that you might not be able to play, I want to mix them in with songs that are either easier to understand or physically a lot easier to play. So I'm just going to make I guess a little note of that. So this song, The Things You See, it has a lot of different parts in it, and one of the reasons why is because it's basically two different songs thrown together as one. Allan recorded this with Gordon Beck in I think 1980, and one of the parts was called The Things You See and the other part was called At the Edge. And I guess after that he sort of combined both of those songs, both of those parts, and created what you hear on the IOU record. So yeah, it's got a lot of weird parts in it, but a lot of things that sort of repeat the same way. So anyway, get your hands warmed up and let's get started. So let's start with the intro, of course. The beginning of the song starts out with this E flat major 7 voicing. What's interesting though is this voicing does not use the perfect fifth. Doesn't have a B flat in there, but it actually has two G's. So this is a very unusual voicing for Allan, where every note that's being played is not unique. There's actually a note that's doubled in there. So it's really just for this voicing and these kind of major 7s that happen again. So E flat major 7 to an E flat major, but now you're adding in the 11. So instead of playing it like this, you're kind of playing it like that and you're adding the 11. So the root can either be here or it can be where your third finger is. This voicing you've seen before in Pud Wud and other songs can also be played like this if you want. Instead of putting the G on the A string, you can put it on the E string. And this voicing has appeared in other songs as well, but for this song Allan actually plays it like this because you're still playing the same group of strings as that E flat major 7. So E flat major 7 to E flat major at 11, and then you do the same thing a whole step up. F major 7 to F major at 11. Just like that. That motif happens later, but the structure of those intervals are a little bit different in terms of where they're going to. The chords are the same, but they don't move in the same exact way. So then after that, the rhythm's a little interesting over here because it doesn't start on beat 1. It has more of an upbeat feel, but the way that it's played doesn't make it sound like that. At least to me it doesn't. So the first chord here is an F sharp minor 7, sharp 5. But of course you can think of this as a D major add 9. So I'm going to call it a minor 7 sharp 5 just because it's going to be easier for me to remember or name the chord. But you can think of it as many different ways as you want. D major add 9 being the most obvious alternate. So F sharp minor 7 sharp 5, then to G major add 9, which we've seen plenty of times already. And then that motif happens now a whole step up because now you're playing an A flat minor 7 sharp 5 or an E major add 9, and then A major add 9. And then there's a little details played in the chord in terms of extra strings that are playing a little random here and there, but for the most part it's the same kind of melody. This is actually a little tricky because you're actually swapping the note on the A string from your pinky to your third finger. Like that. That's really tricky. Then it repeats the same way. But now instead of the A flat major minor 7 sharp 5, you go right to A major. And then you play the high A, and then with your pinky you actually play the major 7 on the top, the G sharp. Then you repeat the first 4 chords again, but now you actually play it a half step up to G. So now G minor 7 sharp 5 to A flat major add 9, A minor 7 sharp 5, and then B flat major add 9, and then you just sort of play the rest of the chords out with your right hand. So it should sound something like this. That's it. That's the intro part. That part with all the add 9s doesn't happen again, and that's really the only part that's completely new to this song that hasn't been pulled from those other 2 different songs on the Gordon Beck record. So now we're going to go on to the verse section.
When I look at the edge, oh, it scares me.
The verse section is relatively simple, of course, in concept. The physical part of it's a little strange, but what's nice is every time the verse repeats, it repeats the same way. So the first chord of the verse is this C minor, but it's in first inversion. And we've seen this inversion before in other songs. Allan really likes playing chords this way, especially for triads, instead of playing like a simple C minor or like this. He actually spreads them out. So he's got the minor third, the root, and then the fifth on the top. And with this, you could do a lot of different voice leading, which is probably one of the reasons why he chose this, because you can do some really cool voice leading without really having to do much work. So it starts out with C minor, but then you take your first and second finger and you move them down a half step. And you're voice leading now to B major. And then you take that your first and second finger and you move it down a half step again, but now your third finger moves to the 9th fret, and now you have a B flat minor. So you have this. Also, for some of these chords, Allan likes to use a little place in like little note motifs or little note details on the top, where he'll bar with his first finger and play the root on the high E string, or even use his pinky to play or mimic what the low E string is doing. So he might do something like that. Once again, it's up to you. That voicing like this is the main voicing that's in Metal Fatigue. It's almost all exclusively these types of major and minor chords, with the minor third or the major third doubled on the high E string. C minor, B flat major, B flat minor. Then you jump all the way up to this D flat major. Now sometimes Allan keeps his third finger on the low E string, or you can replace it with your pinky. I would do that because this the stretch here is a little awkward with my third finger, but you can do it like this if you want. Then you move that D flat major down to B major, A flat minor, that same voicing we used before. And now what's interesting is that you're basically using the same kind of shape, not in the same with the same frets, but now you're moving it up to the 6th, 7th, and 8th fret, but now you're adding in your pinky on E, and now what you have is an F major 7, which we've seen before, like in Tullio, this F major 7. So I'm going to play that part again. Then comes this little unique part, which you can think of in a couple of different ways. He's playing a B flat major triad on the top 3 strings, but then using his third finger to play a C sharp in the bass. So if you want, you can think of, I'm going to call this an add 9, just because it's easier, at least for me, to understand. It's a B major with a C sharp in the bass, or a B major, add 9 with the 9 in the bass. If you want to treat the C sharp as your root, we have a root, we have the 9, we have the 4, and then we have the flat 7. So this is kind of like a 9 sus4. And then that chord gets moved up a whole step to C sharp, add 9, or E flat 9 sus4. And then this weird chord, an E flat major with an E in the bass. So E flat major with an add flat 9. Or again, if you want to think of the root as the low E string, we have a minor third, the sharp 11, and the major 7. So this would be E minor major 7, sharp 11. Two different ways of understanding the chord. Then the beginning verse motif kind of happens again, but now it's modulated up. So now we have E flat minor to D major to C sharp minor, and then C major. So now C sharp major. So what you're doing is you're moving the minor third on the low E string up a half step to F. And of course, if you want with that note with your pinky, you can play an F, and you can play the major third to the root here. And then B major, A flat minor, and now instead of moving up and playing that F major 7, we're going to play E flat major 7. So you take your second and third finger, move them down a half step, and then you're adding in the note D note with your pinky. You have that, E flat major 7. So I'll play it from the, I'll play the whole thing actually. Section, modulated verse, now that verse is the same every time it happens. So after this it sort of goes to the intro section, but it's a little bit different now. Instead of starting on E flat major 7, you're playing E major 7 to E flat major, add 11, C sharp major 7, and then C major with the add 11. Now what happens here is Allan actually uses his middle finger and plays the G and then the C on the top, so that the reprise of the intro sounds like this. Then repeats the verse again. I'll just play a little faster to get through it. That's it. That's the part that's called At the Edge on the Gordon Beck version. Then after this we have the really tricky sort of add 9 section. Well, I don't really call it, I shouldn't call it the add 9 section, but really like there's a lot of added notes of 9s and 11s that are built from these barred major add 9s. We've talked about this before in another video, I forgot which one, but I'll explain it again in the next section. So now we get into the real tricky part of the song with all those crazy stretches, and some of you might have seen the infamous picture that I used for the, I guess for the picture for this video of this crazy chord, and it's also in my top 10 hardest Allan voicings, that minor 11 chord. So all these, not all of them, but a lot of them use these add 9, I think of them as add 9 chords with an extension. So just to talk about what that would be, so let's take C major, plain old C major, and then I take the C on the D string and I move it up to D. So now I have a C major with an add 9. But now what if I want to add some extra extensions on the top? Well, all my fingers are being used, but a lot of times, especially in jazz, you can omit the root or omit the fifth. So, and you're just playing the upper extensions on the top. So what Allan's going to do here, he's going to use his first finger to play some of those extensions and not play the root. The bass could play the root if they want to, or something else, but I believe this is how Allan's coming up with these chords, or at least how he's thinking of them as, built from these voicings. So if I put my finger here on the 7th fret, I got the sharp 11 and the major 7. So I have a major 9 with the sharp 11. And if I move my finger down a half step, then I have the 11 and the flat 7, making this like a dominant 11 chord. Of course, the root is always C. So C major 7 sharp 11, or C major 9 sharp 11. C major, C dominant 11. And now for the really tricky one, if I want to make it minor, it's the same concept. If we take C minor, and then we move their pinky up to the 9, we have a C minor and 9. But now what if I want to add those extensions? Well, now our middle finger has to play that minor third, and that's where you have that infamous chord. So here I'm adding the 7 and the 11 and the minor third, so it's really a C minor 11 chord. And that, for all of those sort of weird sort of stretches, they're all really based from that. All these chords with like a phantom root. So the first chord is a C sharp major add 9, but now you're playing the 11 and the flat 7. So this is like a C sharp 11 chord. And then you move it up to a D major with an add 11. Add sharp 11, I should say, sorry. Then you take that same concept and now you move it down to B. So now you have a B11 to C major with the add 11, add sharp 11, then the major 7, and then with your pinky, you take it and you move it all the way up to the 9 on the top. So you got this. And then you move all the way to this chord, C major, with your pinky on the F sharp, C major with an add sharp 11. And then the next chord is this, which is a little strange because we have what looks like a G major 7, but now we're also adding in this C. Now it depends. If Allan's using his fingers, I've seen where he uses his fingers sometimes, he'll just play all the notes except that C, except the D string note. But when he's using the pick, that C is definitely in there. So it's like a C major 11 chord, which is very strange. You definitely don't see major 11 chords because the major third and the 11 clash pretty heavily. You can sort of get that sound in there. Now after that you have these really sort of quick chords that Allan's playing. You have this. Now this is one of the few chords I think in this song that's a little challenging to name. I really think Allan is thinking of a C major 7 I should say, with the sharp 11 in the bass, but he's not playing the high E on the top, so that doesn't really make it a major 7. I think that's how he's interpreting it as, but if you want to think of it in a different way, we have a G, we have a B, and we have an F sharp. We have all the components of a G major 7, and then we have the 11 or the C in there, so you can also think of this as a G major 11 if you want, or a C major 7 with an add sharp 11, so I'll leave that up to you. But this is the voicing. And that voice leads very nicely to this F major add 9. Your pinky's in the same spot, and you're actually barring the G and the B here, but then you've got to unbar it, and now you're playing a pretty straightforward F major add 9. Then you're voice leading by taking your first, second, and fourth finger and moving it down a half step while your third finger stays on this A. And then so this is more like a sus4 add 9, but then what you do is Allan actually uses his third finger and plays the D on the top at the same time. I can't really reach it, so I just lift it and play it. So it's really a 9 sus4 overall. And then the last chord of that little part is a flat major 7 sharp 5. So let me play it just up to there for now. I did a lot of talking. Now for this next section, we've got more of those stretchy add 9 chords. But the first chord, it starts off with this E flat major with an E in the bass. It's kind of the same voicing as this, which you've seen before. This is the only time I think Allan actually plays this voicing exclusively. Once again, two different ways you can think of this chord because it's very similar to the E flat major with the flat 9 we had in the bass earlier. You can think of it as a E flat with an added flat 9 in the bass, or you can think of it as E minor major 7 sharp 11. He arpeggiates this chord pretty heavily. And then you move to this, which is an E minor and 9 but now you're using your first finger to play the 11 on the top, so this is like an add 9, add 11. So, and then you're sort of retaining the same shape, but now you're playing it here. You're playing this B flat major, add 9 with the add 11. And then the next chord after that, this is where it gets really challenging. You actually, excuse me, I'm always looking at the viewfinder because I want to make sure everyone's seeing this properly. You then take this power chord, this F and C, and you move it up a half step. So you actually voice lead from a B flat major, add 9 with an add sharp 11 to a B minor with the add 11. And that's the same chord you see in the video, but now in B instead of in A. Then, really tricky. The last little part of this section is this chord, which I would say is a G dominant 7 without the root, but once again you're using your first finger to play the 11 and the flat 7, so this is a G dominant 11 to me. And then you slide up with your first finger, you're going to play this G on the top, and this is where the picture comes from, that infamous A minor add 11 chord, which I can barely do here. It's the same voicing that we did up here for B, but because it's lower on the neck, you got to stretch further. And then the last chord, your fingers are on the same strings, but you move it down to this. And as you can see, I'm really using the side of my fingers for this chord. Once again, we have a G major add 9 with the flat 6 or the flat 13 in the bass. And that's that final chord of that section. So let me play that whole thing. Hopefully I don't screw it up too badly. Barely reaching it there, my hand's getting tired. So that's that whole section. I believe that's also in the Things You See section, the Gordon Beck song. That part happens again later after the solo, but now after this comes the little swell section, which is basically, it sounds like it's E major, but it's not, it's actually in A major. I'll explain it in the next part. So this is where Allan turns on the swell part, and sometimes, like later in his career, he would just do this swell section and then just add this section in there as like a medley kind of thing. So this whole thing sounds like it's in E major, but it's not. It's actually in A major. It has more of an E Mixolydian sound. The bass is really playing in E, or at least the guitar is also playing in E, sort of as a drone. It's one of those pedal point sections that we've seen in White Line and in other Allan songs I've mentioned. But all these voicings that he's playing are pretty much diatonic to A major or E Dorian. So the first chord, you have this E major with an add 11, add 9, and the add 11, and then you're adding in the 9 on the top. So you have this E major, add 9, add 11. Then we go to this chord. I'm going to try to call all of these chords with their root as E, because almost all of them I think have an E in there somewhere. E, G sharp, and B, and then we have an F sharp here, so this is like an E major, add 9. Then basically you take that same chord and you move it a whole step down, but now you don't use your pinky, although that note should technically be in there because we're playing an A major. Allan's not, and he's just playing A, E, F sharp, and B. So this is kind of like, we have an E, an A, and a B, which is a sus4, and then we have the 9, so it's a sus4 and 9. Then we go to this chord here, which is kind of like we have like a E major with the 11 on the top, E major add 11. Sort of like the same kind of voicing as we did before. If we moved that to B flat, we'd have a add sharp 11, but here we're playing it as A. And now, I think I mentioned this in other videos, like in 0247 and another, I forgot what other song it was, where you're playing the same chords, but you're changing the orientation of two of the notes. So here we have a G sharp in the bass, and we have an A on the top, and I'm going to flip them. So now I have an A in the bass and a G sharp on the top. So this is still the same chord to D major with an add 11, but now their orientation has changed. So it almost sounds like a different chord. And then with this voicing, you basically move it down diatonically to this D major, but now you're using your pinky to play G sharp here. So that whole thing is diatonic to A major, but mostly E Dorian because it has that E's being played throughout the whole thing. Sometimes Allan here, of course, there's always some variation. You might move to the F sharp here, or maybe play the G sharp in the bass, or maybe even move to A, or do something weird. Once again, it's just how you feel like you want to play it, because you're playing within that key. Then that repeats the same exact way. But now the difference is, the last chord, we actually have this E flat major, with the, I guess, the sharp 9 on the top, the minor third. So you can think of this as an E flat major with an add sharp 9. Or I think you can also think of this as a, actually I'm not going to say I'm going to get it wrong, but you can also think of this chord as like a minor major 7, sharp 5. But if you're thinking of E as your root, we have an E, we have a G, we have a minor third, sharp 11, major 7, and then 9. So this is like a minor major 9, sharp 11 chord. Which I guess if you want to think of it, you can think of it belonging to harmonic major, I think Lydian minor, or to some people Lydian diminished, which it makes sense, but I like Lydian minor better. So that's that last chord of that section, and then the solo happens. So now I'm just going to play through it with the little swell sound just so you have an idea of what it sounds like. So I don't want to set up the magic stomp with the volume pedal and all that stuff, so I'm just going to do it the poor man's way. I'm just going to swell in with the volume knob on my guitar, and also I have a setting, I sort of made like that kind of swell setting on my Kemper. So it doesn't sound as good, but at least it'll get the job done. I also forgot to mention sometimes here Allan actually likes to play the C sharp, so he'll do the swell, he'll add in the C sharp in there. So you almost have a F sharp major triad with a G in the bass, while with the E's going on. Then comes the solo section. Now the solo section's a little interesting because the chords in there are pretty free in terms of the voicings that are being used. So I'm going to go and talk about all the different voicings and stuff that you could possibly use there, or at least the ones that Allan uses the most. But I'm going to skip that because that solo, the solo section also happens at the end, so I'm going to reserve that to the end section. Alright, so after the solo section, Allan sort of goes back and plays kind of like a little variation of the verse again. It's the first half of the verse, but the last chord, that F major 7, is actually the last chord of the verse, the E flat major 7. So after the solo, you get this little part, starting with the C minor. And then E flat major 7. Then from there it goes into the that sort of add 9, add 11 part, the that whole thing. I won't play the whole part of it, but it's exactly the same. Then after that comes the final part of the song, which is what they were just soloing over. Now Allan talks about this in his instructional video. He talks about kind of the harmony behind it. He calls it an A flat major to a D flat major to a D flat minor to an A flat minor to I think a A minor major 7. Then I forgot what the next chord he says. I think he just says F sharp major or something. And then the last chord he says C minor with an E, which I don't think is 100% correct. He might have just misspoke. He might have meant C sharp minor with an E. The trouble with this section, and also during the solo section when he's trading off solos with Steve, there's no real static voicing that he uses like in the like the head or some other sections. There's a lot more improv and playing around with the different voicings. So I'll show you some of the different voicings that Allan would use in this section. So the first part, he usually starts out with just A flat major with the add 9. Sometimes he'll add the sus4, I think, in there. And then goes to D flat major, and you can play D flat major add 9. Or he plays this version of D flat major 7, which he uses quite frequently. Sometimes he'll do that. Then it goes to D flat minor, so he'll play that D flat minor at D flat minor 9 voicing that we've seen plenty of times. And a lot of times when he plays this, he likes to move the minor third up to the 4, the 11, and top and play the flat 7 on the top. And then goes back to A flat minor, which he'll take that same voicing, but now you're using the open B string instead of using your first finger. Or in the structural video, he just plays this because he's thinking of it as A flat minor at 9. Now the next part, he calls it an A minor major 7 kind of chord, but he's not really playing an A. It's built from A melodic minor. So if we look at this, the melodic minor scale, well, I'll just start it again. This note here, this F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp. So a lot of the voicings are really based from this, the F sharp, the 6th, the minor 3rd, and then the 5. And sometimes Allan will play the F sharp with his first finger up here and maybe move it to G sharp. Or even he'll play this and play the B on the top. But usually these 3 notes are pretty consistent in there. Then it goes to an F sharp major 7 or F sharp major sound. So once again, Allan will play F sharp major at 9. Or sometimes he likes to play this F major 7 with the major 7 and the bass, the F. I think in the video he does this, and he just plays the major scale backwards on the B string. Something like that. Or any sort of variation of F sharp major 7. One of the things that voicings Allan likes to use a lot is this. So he'll play, it's F sharp major 7, you got F sharp, you got the F sharp, I'm sorry, F sharp, C sharp, and the major 3rd over here. And sometimes he'll just pull off the B flat here to A flat. And he'll even use this F sharp major 7, which you've seen in Funnels and in some other tunes. Those are like his go-to major 7 chords. Just like if I was to say, oh, play me this chord, you'd have your sort of go-to chords. His for major 7, for F sharp major 7, or just F major 7 would be this or this, and even that same one that I played before, all the way on the top here. So those are really his 3 sort of go-to chords. And then for the next part, it goes to E major, or sort of has like an E Lydian kind of sound. And this is what I was saying, where there's no real static chord for this. It's kind of, you're playing once again within a key, and I've mentioned that in other parts, like in Letters of Marque, there's sections where the key is sort of defined, but there's no chord that's really associated with it. You're just playing chord scales, I guess what Allan would say. So I talked about this a lot in a previous video. I don't know why I'm blanking, but I just did it with all the different ways that you can think of playing within that key. Allan likes to use regular triads on the top 3 strings, but then adding in an extension in the bass, whether it be the 9 or 11. in this song, Allan actually uses a lot of those voicings with the 9 in them. So I'll just play them briefly. So let's pretend that we're playing in B major, which is E Lydian, sorry, not Lydian. So these are all these voicings are diatonic to B major, or more specifically E Lydian. First he likes to start off with this chord here, something like this. This might seem a little weird because there's a couple of ways you can think about it. We have an E, a D sharp, a B flat, right there we have a major 7 and the sharp 11, and then the 9. But another way you can think of this is a D sharp minor triad with the flat 9 in the bass. Because then the next chord that Allan in sequence would be from that chord to this E major with the 9 in the bass, the F sharp major with the G sharp in the bass. You can even play this G sharp minor with the 9 in the bass. Then of course you can play the A sharp diminished with the flat 9 in the bass, B major with the 9 in the bass, and then you're back to I guess you could do C sharp minor with the 9 in the bass. And then you're back to square one, which is the D sharp minor with the flat 9 in the bass. And of course with your first finger you can play the open E, or you can play those 3 notes and play the B on the top, or A sharp. So you're really playing within that key, and if you watch any of the live videos of Allan when he's playing during that section, he's probably using those kind of voicings, but not statically up and down, you know, like whatever you feel like doing. It's once again freer. So that section, that's the solo section, it just repeats that way over and over again, is basically the same as the solo section, except the solo section has a slightly different rhythmic variation to it. And then finally at the end of the song, it sort of starts out again with the intro variation when we started on E major 7, but now it's transposed down a half step. So it's E flat major 7 to D major 7 to C major 7, and then the last chord of the song is B major 7. Sorry, B major at 11. And then sometimes, because I was thinking, sometimes Allan will actually play the major 7 on top, the B flat. So it was a B major at 11 with sometimes with the major 7 on top. Let me just play that again. And that's it. That's the song. So as I said, there are a lot of parts that sort of repeat the same way. It's just that one section has all those really crazy chords in it. And in terms of stretching, there's not much I can really say. Most of the difficulty really lies between your second, third, and fourth finger, making sure that they're really wide. Because this is not too bad, playing a power chord with these 2 fingers, but even doing this. But really getting that middle finger on the minor third is really challenging, as I said in that video. As you can see, my pinky almost has like no give. It's about as far as it can go. Also, once again, using the side of your hand, as you see in that picture, Allan's really using the side of his fingers. So anyway, that's that song. So the next song that I'm going to do is going to be another difficult one. I decided I'm going to do Material Real. I'm pretty happy with how the song came out. Transcribing it, I think I had to go back and revise it a little bit. It's another one of those songs, it's, I would say, his second most challenging song, but there are a lot of chords in there that you can actually change to make it a bit easier for you to play. Plus there's a lot of parts of that song that just repeat the same way, so it's not all these random chords. It's the verse is almost always the same, the pre-chorus is almost always the same, just with very minor variations. It's just a lot of the chords in there are so stretchy. But I'll talk about that when I get that when I do that video. So anyway, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys pretty soon.